Good morning and welcome to the Petitti Pro Garden Show. Thank you all so much for getting up early and being with me again. We are starting out a new season here in April, and it was a nice winter. None of us had terrible snowstorms that we had to deal with, and so that was a blessing. I know for me, I got a lot more sleep this winter than I have in the past few winters, so I was very excited for this light winter, and it also brought many of you out to our farmers markets. Those farmers markets are still going on at the Garden Center on the first and the third Saturday of each month, and we'll be doing those through May, and then we'll be ending when the other farmers markets all begin the beginning or mid part of June. We'll all be finished up, and then we'll start back next fall. A lot has gone on over the winter, and a lot of things has happened. And with a winter like we had, a lot of you kept a lot of things going. And right now, you're getting ready to move things back outside, doing some transition. Also, a lot of you are doing some transplanting and wondering about a lot of those things. So today on the show, we're going to be talking about what you should be doing in your gardens right now, what you should be doing with your lawns right now, and all of those types of things. And of course, we're going to be telling you how to do these things and how to do them organically, because that's what we are. We are Stark County's only organic greenhouse, and we're very proud of that and all the work that goes into staying organic. But it's been a wonderful journey doing everything organically. So we're just going to, I just want to thank all of you again for being with us. And I want to just thank Christ for giving us this opportunity for being able to be back on the air with all of you and share His word. And what he has to say a lot about gardening and those types of issues. Over the Lenten season, we did a Bible study at the Garden Center, and we titled it, "Is Your Body Worthy of Being a Temple of the Holy Spirit?" And we based it around food and eating and treating our bodies with things that God gave us. And so that was a wonderful time. We gained some wonderful friendships through that time and a great amount of knowledge. All of us that met at the greenhouse on Thursday evenings, and it was just such a blessing to be able to share the word and what Christ and God really had to say about those issues of the food issues. A lot of times we think about treating our body as a temple of the Holy Spirit. A lot of people have then in mind, we shouldn't be tattooed or we shouldn't be, pierced and different things like that. And God really showed us that those aren't really the things that he was talking about, but how we're really treating our body spiritually as well as physically. So we gained a wealth of knowledge during that Bible study, and hopefully we will start it up again after the busy season gets through here. So if you are interested, please give us a call at the greenhouse or stop by. All of that information is the Garden Center is located at 5828 Columbus Road. That's in Nimishillen Township. We have a Louisville address. Our phone number is 330-455-5997. We have a fax number of 330-455-5998. Or you can email me at cindypetitti@gmail.com. That's CindyPetitti@gmail.com. You can also be in touch with us on our Facebook page. It's Anthony Petitti Garden Center on Facebook. We also do have Twitter as well, so if you want to send us a tweet, we will also make sure we get back with you on all of those social media venues as well. So we are going to go ahead and get started with some of the things that you should be doing in your lawns and in your gardens right now. And right now is when you want to do your spring cleanup, and you want to get all of those dead leaves that are in your beds out, rake all of those ones out. If you have roses or anything that had some powdery mildew, maybe some black spot, any type of fungus on it, you definitely want to make sure that those are out of your beds. It's best to try to do it in the fall, but sometimes you miss them, or maybe you just didn't get to your fall cleanups. And so this spring, you want to make sure that you get all of that out before you start leafing out again, so that you don't have those spores bouncing up on the leaves of your new tissue on those new leaves. A thing with having such a warm winter, Some of those funguses, some of those insects are probably going to have lived through. And so we might have some more of those issues this year, and need to be aware of what can be out there and how to take care of them organically, of course. So when you're doing your bed cleanup, you want to make sure that you get all the debris raked up out from underneath all of your plants. If you're doing a vegetable garden, make sure that you have all of them out of your beds or out of those vegetable garden areas. Or if you can, till and put some black plastic down over the next few weeks when we're having nice sunny days. That will help bake out some of those diseases, or egg from insects that might be in those areas. Bake them out of there so that you're not going to have to worry about those. This is also time in your flower beds or in your landscape beds. If you have ornamental grasses and you didn't cut those down in the fall, you want to get those cut down now and also get them burnt off right away. We've talked a lot about in the past burning off our grasses. And if you have ornamental grasses, you know what a pain they can be if you just cut them off and you have those dead sticks from last year or previous years standing up there, especially if it's the year that you need to do some splitting of your grasses. And we're going to get back to splitting our grasses and perennials in a few minutes. But you're going to want to make sure that you make that easy for yourself. So get a hose, get the bucket of water, something with you, and you can actually light those sticks from your ornamental grasses on fire and burn them right to the ground. And that way, when the new tissue is coming through, it doesn't have to fight that old dead stuff to get up through there. So you're going to have a nicer stand of grass earlier in the season. And also, if it is the year for you to split your grass, it's going to make that much easier for you to do as well. So you want to make sure that you do those things, make your life a little bit easier. Work smarter, not harder, my late husband used to always say. So you want to make sure that you do that. And this is the time of year that you can do that. Things are still damp out, but you still want to use some caution when you're burning your grasses off. If your grasses are close to your house, having another person there with you, holding that garden hose, holding that bucket of water, ready to douse it right away if it does start to get out of hand, is very a good idea. You don't want to make sure that doesn't get out of hand on you. For your lawns, this is the time that you want to do your first application. Organically, that's going to be corn gluten meal, and you want to get that down on your lawn. Now, it is going to be a weed control pre-emergently, which that means it kills seed. So this is going to kill all those annual weed seeds, your crabgrass, your dandelions. It's going to take care of all of those annual weeds. Remember, though, it doesn't know the difference between good seed and bad seed. So if you're trying to control these weeds, and this is going to be if you are doing chemical weed control as well, that pre-emergent, even chemically, is a weed seed killer or a seed killer. It's going to stop the seeds from germinating. That being said, you need to make sure that you're not doing any seed work of your own at the same time. So if you're putting down your corn gluten meal, or if you're putting down a chemical pre-emergent weed control, you want to make sure that you're not doing any seed work. So don't do any overseeding of your lawn at the same time. Don't do any wildflower seeds in an area close by, because that's going to get over into that area and it's going to stop those seeds from germinating as well. So you want to make sure that you leave about a 6-week window from the time you put your corn gluten meal down or your other pre-emergent until you're going to do some seed work. Now, the other question that we have a lot about with corn gluten meal is it's something I can use in my vegetable gardens to help control weeds. And definitely it is. Remember, it only stops seed from germinating. So if you have perennial weeds in any area, in your lawn, in your gardens, the corn gluten meal is not going to control those weeds, but it's going to control any seed from germinating. So it will definitely help control annual seeded weeds in your garden. Again, though, you want to make sure if you're putting that down in your garden right now, that you're not doing any seed work in your garden. Now, an onion is a seed. So if you are planting an onion set, it still needs to germinate. It has not germinated yet. So if you're putting down in your onion sets today, You don't want to be outside also putting down your corn gluten meal the same way. You want to make sure that you are, leaving that time span. But if you are only putting seedlings in your garden, let's say you started your onions inside and they are already germinated and up and nice and green, and you're going to be planting those in your garden, you can go ahead and put down your corn gluten meal, and then immediately the next couple days go ahead and put in your vegetables, your seedlings that you have ready to go in, and it's not going to affect those. Now we're going to go ahead, even though we haven't been doing the show throughout the winter months, we have had questions. And so we have some of those that we wanted to answer. And these are questions that people have just called in the last week or so and have been asking. So they do pertain to what we're doing in our lawns and gardens at this time. So the first one was, what do I do with my bulbs from Easter? Now, we mean bulbs by Easter is if you have tulips, daffodils, hyacinths, Easter lilies from your church service that you got after Easter, or if you bought some at the store, at your local independent garden centers, and you had those tulips out to celebrate the spring Easter season, and now you don't know what to do with them. So what you're going to do is leave them in this pot until the foliage is dead, just like you would in the ground. Once they have turned completely brown, you can cut off the stems and the leaves, then take the bulbs out of the soil, set them on a dry area so that they dry completely, and store them until fall. And then you can plant them in the fall when you normally would be planting your daffodils, your tulips, and your hyacinths. And then they will be planted at the right time, and then next year you will have some flower. They will not ever flower for you again the same year. And a lot of times when you're dealing with forced bulbs, even the first year in the ground, they won't do great for you. So just keep that in mind. Now, your lilies, on the other hand, you can go ahead and plant your lilies now in the ground. And then when the stalk falls off or, starts to fall over because it is dead, you can just cut it off and, throw that top away and leave the bulb in the ground. Again, it's not going to produce another flower this year, but it will for next year. But remember, your Easter lily isn't a lily that normally blooms at Easter time because Easter time fluctuates. It's going to normally bloom in July. So make sure that you realize that. And next year around Easter time or early in the spring, you're not expecting that lily to be blooming beautifully for Easter, because it's not going to be. It's going to be blooming in that July time frame. So that's what you're going to be doing with that. Now, the next question that we have, they wanted to know what plants can be planted now. So if you are getting ready to be doing some planting in your vegetable gardens or even in your perennial gardens, they wanted to know what you can plant now. Well, vegetable-wise is much easier than flower-wise. So vegetable, you can go ahead and plant your peas, your onions. You can plant your potatoes. You can do any of your cold crops now. So that is what we call cold crops are Swiss chard, kale, collards, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage. Those kind of things can be planted now. They are very cool tolerant. Now, if we had a spell of, let's say, a week at 20 degrees, it might not be a bad idea to cover. I don't usually see that happening once we're into April, having an entire week of 20-degree temperatures. But we are going to have some nights. They should handle those nighttime temperatures just fine. If they are predicting like a freezing rain or something, you don't need to worry about that. You're going to be fine with that. Those kind of plants are very hardy. Now, if your potatoes start to sprout and they're through the ground, you can just hill them up again, and they're going to be fine. You don't have to worry about it. If you have planted something out and it has some soft tissue that's not going to deal well with the cold, then that's the time that you are going to want to cover those. And we sell a frost cloth that you can purchase, and we sell it by the foot. It comes 14 feet wide, and you can buy it by the foot. So if you have a span in your garden that you just need, 10 or 12 feet, a couple feet wide, we can cut you off 2 feet, and you can purchase it that way and put it over any of those things that you need to cover in your garden. Now, this is also going to work for you if you have things that are coming up in your flower gardens now, because we have had these nice warm temperatures, and then in the end of April or the beginning of May, we do have a cold snap where we're going to have some freezing temperatures, in freezing temperatures, not just frost. This frost cloth is going to save those as well, so you can't always put that over that. Or if you have, let's say, a peach tree, and they are starting to bud up now, and a lot of us, we haven't had peaches in the last couple years because, of course, we had some nice days in April. Our peach tree started to bud up. And then all of a sudden, we have these very cold temperatures. You can take that frost cloth and cover your fruit trees and save their blossoms so that you will still have some fruit. So you might want to make sure that you keep those kind of things in mind as well. The frost cloth can really, really save your garden. The next question that we had is, what seeds should you be starting now? And if you're starting seeds indoors, if you haven't started your peppers, you're really a bit late. Your best bet now would be to start your peppers by a seedling that you purchase at your local independent garden center. But if you still want to try peppers from seed, make sure that you're starting them indoors and have a heat mat or a heating pad, something that you can keep that soil at about 80 degrees. I would recommend getting a thermometer if you can, and keeping it in the soil so that you know that your soil is staying somewhere between 78 and 82 degrees. You're going to have the fastest germination at those temperatures. And keep your seed there until it's germinated, and then get it into adequate light so it hardens off and gets a nice strong stem. Remember, when you're seeding, you need 0 fertilizer until you do your transplant. Those tiny little seeds do not need fertilizer. You don't need to do that until you do your transplant. Now, besides peppers and herbs is the other thing that takes quite a while to germinate. And they really need those very warm temperatures to do so. So if you have any of those, follow those instructions that I gave for those. Now, tomatoes, this is a great time to start your tomatoes. You probably want to get them started this week. Today being the 9th, I would try to get them started this weekend. And then that way your tomatoes will be at a nice stage, a nice size, nice structure when it's time to put them out toward the end of May. I usually don't recommend planting until, right around Memorial Day, maybe a few days before if the weather is looking like it's going to be very nice the Memorial Day weekend, and we really don't know about that quite yet. You can't really trust the weather forecast for 4 or 5 days, let alone a whole month out. So, but you're going to want to make sure that you get those seeds planted right away. Within the next few days here on your tomatoes. Now, things that you can still wait on, if you start your seedlings inside for cucumbers, melons, squash, and we start all of those early as well and have them ready for you to purchase and plant directly into your garden as a seedling. But if you are trying to do some of those seeds yourself, you're going to want to wait for about another 2 weeks. And right around the 23rd, we're looking at Passover time. That's going to be about the great time to start those other things like your cucumbers and your melons and your squashes, because they germinate very, very quickly. Now, the other things that you can do outside, you could start, a lot of people like to start their cabbage directly outside, their lettuces directly outside. Those things you can do, but you can also start them indoors, and we have them as seedlings as well. But your cabbage and your lettuces, you could go ahead and get started now in starting them from seed, and then you could put them out as soon as they germinate. You could go ahead and put those outside, and they're going to do very, very well for you without any issues. The next question that we have is it okay to plant trees right now? And it is definitely fine to plant trees. If you are at a nursery and they have, trees, your fruit trees, any of those, remember though, trees that were dug in an outdoor nursery, a lot of times they're moved inside of a building, like for holding. A lot of times fruit trees, especially, this is done. They dig them and then they bring them into a holding area. And a lot of times those holding areas will force them a little bit into some bud stage. So if it's a tree that was dug out in the nursery, never brought in, it was balled and burlapped or put in a container right there, it's been brought to your local independent garden center outside, it's not forced, you can definitely plant that this weekend and leave it right outside and go with it and do nothing to it besides staking it and fertilizing it. But if it was a tree that was brought into a building for a holding area or brought into a hoop house or a cold frame, and you notice there's any bud formation on it, those are the ones, if you plant, you're going to want to make sure that you cover, because a lot of times those fresh, tender leaflings, little buds, flower buds that might be coming out, they're very tender. So you're going to want to make sure that you cover those if there is some chance of a frost going on at that time. The next question that we had was about splitting hostas. And the question was, is it the time to split my hostas right now? And yes, it is. And not only hostas. So we're going to jump back to where we were talking about the grasses. Right now, any of your perennials that are starting to emerge from the soil, that could be your peonies, your daylilies, your hostas, your ornamental grasses, as they are starting to emerge from the soil, this is the best time to do that splitting. You can see where everything is. It's a great time because the soils are still cool and they're not going to try to grow really, really fast. And what is up from the earth is hardy enough to handle the cool temperatures. So this is a perfect time to get in there with a nice sharp spade shovel, split your hostas, split your perennials, split your grasses. And then when you're backfilling into those areas from the piece that you took out, use some of the soil that's there, and then maybe some potting soil or some peat moss. That's going to help that other side of the root system that you sliced off to start taking on and start growing into the new soil. This is the time also that you want to do some starter fertilizer. Some Biotone Plus from Espoma is a great product at this time to sprinkle down in there next to that new root system where it's going to be taking off from its old half, and get that down in there and then backfill. Also, when you take the piece that you cut off and putting it in another spot in your landscape or giving it to someone else, you also want to put on something that's going to have lots of good microbes down in there, and that's going to help that root system take off. And it's also going to help fight off any funguses that might try to attack a foreign object in the soil. A lot of times when you're putting new roots down into a soil, if there's some fungus down in that soil by chance, it's going to attach to those new roots because it's something foreign and it's not used to it there, so it's going to be attracted to that. And then a lot of times that's when you'll notice that a newly transplanted plant isn't doing so well. So you want to make sure that you put that Biotone starter, something with good microbes down in that soil, and your new plant will take off wonderfully. Again, the new piece that you're planting in, mix some potting soil or some peat moss in with that soil when you're backfilling it in its new spot, and you're going to find that your perennials, your grasses, your hostas all do wonderfully. So this is definitely the time that you want to go ahead and dive into getting those things cleaned up and split up while you're doing your spring cleanups. Well, it seems like our shows go so fast. We want to thank you again for tuning in with us for another season. We will be here with you through the end of October. Please come out and join us at the Farmers Market. There will be one next Saturday. Next Saturday morning, I'll remind you, on the 16th. And then there also will be two in May. So we have one next Saturday, the 16th, which is the third Saturday of this month. And then we will be having one on the 7th of May and also on the 21st of May, which that will end out farmers markets at the Garden Center. Remember to stop in at 5828 Columbus Road, Louisville. Give us a call at 330-455-5997 or shoot me an email at cindypetitti@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening and have a blessed week.